Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something super fascinating. A journey that connects the clinical science of the human brain with the absolute precision of artistic illustration and the incredibly rich world of cultural storytelling. Have you ever wondered how just a few words on a page, paired with some colorful drawings, can literally and permanently alter the way a human being perceives the world? Well, you are definitely in the right place.
You know, it's so easy to just write off a bedtime story as a simple sleep tactic. Like, it's just a quiet activity to get the kids to settle down after a wild day. But the research paints a completely different picture. These stories are actually brain-altering, empathy-building tools. They serve as the foundational architecture for how we interact with everyone around us. So today, we are going to completely deconstruct the bedtime story.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the science of bedtime stories, crafting a picture book, the legacy of children's magazines, teaching the Virtue of Sabr, and finally, symbolism and transformation. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Science of Bedtime Stories, Building Better Brains.
So, let's ground this whole discussion in some actual clinical psychology. There's this really fascinating recent study published in the journal PLOS1. Researchers basically wanted to see what would happen if kids between the ages of 6 and 8 did a simple nightly reading routine for just 2 weeks, just 14 days. It's kind of wild to think such a short amount of time could actually move the needle on highly complex traits like empathy and creativity, right?
What's really cool is how they set the test up. They split the kids into 2 groups. Group 1's parents just read the books straight through, cover to cover, totally normal. But Group 2, those parents were told to actively pause right at the big conflict points in the story. And during those pauses, they'd ask the kids reflection questions. Things like, hey, how do you think the character is feeling right now? Or, what do you think they should do next?
The results here are absolutely profound. Both methods definitely boosted empathy and creative originality. So yeah, just the act of reading together is a massive win. But that active pause to reflect, that was a total game changer. It unlocked a significantly higher level of creative fluency in the kids' minds. By literally forcing them to step into the character's shoes right in the middle of the drama, their brains were actively practicing perspective taking, and that is the very root of compassion and creative problem solving. Kind of makes you wonder how often we remember to hit the pause button and reflect on our own lives, doesn't it?
Section 2. Crafting a picture book, the creator's desk.
Okay, so we know these stories are powerful tools, but how are they actually built? Let's zoom right into the creator's desk to see how authors and illustrators deliberately design these empathy-building environments. There's a professional YouTube creator who shared her incredibly meticulous, step-by-step storyboard method for plotting a 32-page rhyming picture book. This one was about a bear with absolutely no manners, and, well, we've all met someone like that. She doesn't just sit down and start drawing. First, she breaks the written stanzas down page by page. Then she makes these tiny little thumbnail sketches to balance the pacing. But the real magic happens at step 3.
Before she illustrates all 32 pages, she creates what she calls a pilot painting. It's just this one tiny preliminary watercolor piece. But this single painting is absolutely crucial. It sets the entire aesthetic foundation, the character style, the color palette, the whole emotional vibe for the book's universe. It is the visual anchor that makes sure the world the child is stepping into feels safe, cohesive, and emotionally resonant right from the get-go.
Section 3. Legacy of Children's Magazines, Hamdard Nauni Hall.
Now, that deliberate kind of world-building isn't just for Western picture books. It applies to entire cultural institutions globally. Let's look at the rich history of Hamdard Nauni Hall. Founded way back in 1953 by Hakim Said, this magazine has been an absolute cultural staple in Pakistan. Under the long-running editorship of Masood Ahmed Barkati, it had a very specific, laser-focused mission to deliver engaging moral stories, teach beautiful Urdu, and give kids these great little informative snippets. And it was so foundational that in October 2020, it evolved to meet modern needs, getting a massive revamp into a bilingual format, Urdu and English, continuing its incredible legacy of nurturing young minds.
Section 4. Teaching the Virtue of Sabr, Cultural and Moral Messaging.
Let's zoom in even closer on the specific cultural and philosophical lessons that texts like these pass down to the next generation. A prime example is the profound Islamic concept of sabr. Now, a lot of times people just translate sabr as patience, but honestly, it's way more active than that. It is spiritual steadfastness, it's endurance and persistence. It acts as this deep psychological tool for building resilience, teaching readers how to maintain their inner balance, specifically when they're facing opposition, severe setbacks, or just totally unexpected chaos in life.
To really wrap our heads around the depth of what is being taught here, let's look at the Islamic scholar Fakhruddin al-Razi.
He broke this massive philosophy down into 4 super practical pillars of endurance. Number 1, intellectual endurance, especially when you're navigating complex disputes. 2, the endurance to actually fulfill the tasks you are bound to do. 3, the steadfastness to stay away from forbidden acts. And finally, a graceful resignation or acceptance when unavoidable calamities strike.
This whole idea is beautifully summed up in a quote from the Quran, chapter 2, verse 177. It states that piety is personified by those who are patient in stress and distress. When children's literature bakes in these kinds of cultural texts, the ultimate goal is crystal clear. It's about handing the reader a mental framework to maintain their grace and their inner strength, even during life's absolute toughest challenges.
Section 5. Symbolism and Transformation. The butterfly metaphor.
All right, finally, let's zoom all the way back out and look at the ultimate transformation of the reader. And to do that, we turn to one of the most powerful, universal symbols of change, the butterfly. Check out this excerpt translated from an 8th grade Urdu textbook. It's a poem, a hamd, by Maher ul-Qadri. It asks, "Who made the butterfly colorful and taught it how to fly? God gave man wisdom to uncover these secrets." Nature's sheer beauty is explicitly being used here as a tool to awaken a child's intellect and curiosity.
And this really brings the whole shebang together perfectly. Think about it. Global storytelling methods can look incredibly different on the surface, from a storyboarded picture book about a grumpy bear on one side of the world to classical Urdu poetry pondering the cosmos on the other. But the intent, the underlying goal to nurture the mind, pull the reader out of their immediate bubble, and expand their intellect, that is 100% universal.
Just consider the actual, literal biology of a butterfly for a second. Caterpillars have incredibly simple eyes. They mostly just see light and dark. But as they metamorphosize inside the chrysalis, they develop this crazy, complex eyesight. Adult butterflies can actually see ultraviolet light. That is an entire spectrum of the world that is completely invisible to us. This biological metamorphosis is the perfect mirror for the psychological transformation of a child who learns to read and reflect on stories.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. When we take the time to read a story, when we pause and ask a kid, "Hey, how do you think they're feeling?" Or when we pass down ancient virtues of endurance, we are quite literally building new visual spectrums in a child's mind. Just like that butterfly developing the ability to see what was previously invisible, literature permanently alters and expands our capacity to see the world through the lens of empathy. So what kind of vision are you helping to build today? Thanks so much for joining me, and keep learning.